Test one. Say something on your mic.
Testing. Looks like the volume is
They're both
registering
working
quite well.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, we're recording already.
Yeah, I just started it.
Trying to get in front of me, trying to look huge.
No.
Yeah, that is always kind of the awkward thing is there's a gap right here. And there's that.
Can fix this. Put yours on the other side. Clip it on.
Design?
We can get close. Get close.
Yeah. Suppose we can start any time because you're already recording.
We can. Here we are. Jon and Tara podcast.
Right.
Jon and Tara podcast, where we talk about relationships, business,
Life.
Lots of fun stuff.
So you asked the baristas what questions they have. They're young women,
Yeah.
probably mid-20s, early 20s.
Yeah, they
20s.
knew a young business owner of one of our favorite coffee shops up here, and she knows we do a podcast, and I just said, what would be your number one question about marriage? Mm-hmm. And she said,
how do you keep it going, like actually love each other still after 20 some years? And then she skipped to, like when you're 60 and above. And we're like, well, we're not 60 yet, but we have been married 24 years, so we could answer that part of it. And your answer was, Jon?
I'm hot.
Yeah, it's a problem solved. I did
Super
think
hot.
the other day, this may or may not be related, but we can come back to our answers for this. But I was thinking the other day, because it's out in
Catching the wind pretty good. To see the wind. I wonder.
Yeah, we can do some filtering of that too.
We can.
But it's birds, Jon. I think it's catching the birds.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's the wind.
If you cover your mic once. Test. Yeah, I suppose there's birds in the background too. All right, here we go.
So there's all the red pill stuff out there, and it's more like mudslinging. I think at this point, it's more like what kind of mud can we sling at women, and I mean any of it, all of it, I suppose. But if you want the mud fight kind of scenario, but Jello, I hear, is a little bit more intriguing.
Hey.
So
Only for wrestling.
yes. So it's like women have the pick of the litter, so to speak, when they're younger, overall, and the guys are fighting for it, right? They have to be on their best behavior, they have to be performing, and women can just go yes, no, yes, no.
Yeah, women have their best opportunities when they're younger.
But then it switches, let's say more like so I'm in my early 40s, and definitely
Super early 40s.
not that I'm like out fishing or anything, but certainly things change, right? And I think it's a very interesting flip of the script where guys at that age typically are starting to really gain more traction.
They become more attractive.
They become more. Thank you for summarizing.
Yeah.
Like even if they're not like as hot as you are, they might even just be a smidgen. But even just like the salt and pepper beard can add character, and they generally are worth more financially at that stage. And
They're more established. They know more who they are. Guys, when you're under 30, you're still figuring it out. You're still and you're super horny, so you're making those bad decisions. You're going after what you think is hot and what turns you on in the moment. And some guys aren't. Some guys are thought out, but a lot of guys they don't have kids until they're in their maybe late 20s, early 30s nowadays, and some even into their 40s. But if you have more net worth, or you're more established in life in general, you don't think you have to go out every Friday night with the boys, or every Saturday night boys night out, or and you're a little bit more settled. You've accumulated some things, which I've done that on and off, bought and sold, lots of stuff. But the confidence with which a 40-plus-year-old man carries himself is super attractive to, ladies of a certain ilk. You could seem stuffy or stodgy even at 40. A guy can, because he doesn't want to go to the latest rave, or go out to the parties, and he'd rather be at home, cook dinner for himself even, than run around all over the place. So
I thought about it in the sense, like, you can look at it a couple different ways. The red pill way is, women misbehaving, when they're younger, and men get to misbehave when they're older because they have the pick of the litter, right? But I'm not looking at it that way. It's more like, it relates back to the question, how do you keep a great marriage and actually still remain in love after 10, 20 years? And I think it's really about having that joint vision. And so early on, for a woman, you can get away with more. But it doesn't mean that you should try.
Yeah.
And part of it is you just don't know what you don't know also. Or you can get away with more, so you tend to push the limits. But the thing is, for a lasting relationship, if a woman has pushed it too far early in the relationship, you see people growing apart and not actually being able to communicate.
Well, you have to label what push it too far means.
Well, can we get back to that? Let me just summarize a little bit more.
Sure. Well, what I told the gals at the coffee shop when she asked that question, I asked her to ask a question. And when she did, she said, how do you guys stay married for 20 years? After 20 years, why do you still stay married? And I said, because I'm hot. And then right away I said, actually, what I just did, it's a good sense of humor. Both people have to have a good sense of humor. You've got to want to be with each other. There's a lot of things. And then they branched off into, well, I've heard people have been married for a really long time, and then I've asked them, and they say, well, it's too late to get divorced.
Yeah, we don't. The finances
are all mixed up. Yeah. And and that's not the right answer. The answer is you've built a life together.
Yeah.
That should be the answer. If you're just staying together because of your finances, you're just torturing each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess to summarize it, pushing it would be that a woman in particular is pushing too much for what she wants instead of what they're aiming for to build together at that point. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where, especially if you're not communicating, and I know people are like, oh my God, it's about communication? Really? No way. And yes, it is, but it's about, kind but honest communication. Yeah. And what was it the other day that we were talking with someone or talking about, and it was that divorce attorney James Sexton was on Andrew Huberman the other day, and I thought, well, I've listened to James Sexton before, but maybe it'll be a bit different conversation between him and Andrew. And it was, same but different. And he was promoting, of course, as a divorce attorney, he's really a proponent of prenuptials. And in his experience, he said...
Prenuptial agreements.
Yeah. He said in his experience, actually, very few of his clients that he's done prenuptials for get divorced. And he says he thinks that's because that they've had those hard discussions early on and actually can have those, let's say, mature discussions. And I would say this ties into what I'm talking about with women, at the earliest onset of the relationship, that you don't push it. If you push it, if you're not able to have those conversations and even if you have a man who's like, we just simply, that doesn't make sense for us. It doesn't make sense for us to upgrade a vehicle right now because we're doing this in the family. We have these other goals, or whatever it may be. And I think the couples who can't have those honest conversations are really hard. But that's where then you start silencing a part. You start not talking about more and more stuff, and that's where they say, you're 6 inches apart on the couch, but you're thousands of miles away. And where I think it then reverses, where when men are more in their prime, they've got the salt and pepper beard, they're more mature, they're more more established. I felt that coming on. And then they have the options, right? And she doesn't have as many options, because she's getting expired, so to speak. And I know these are harsh words, but it's just like, let's just be real. And she doesn't have the options she used to have. And he's maybe taking advantage of some options.
I would say that if I was to talk to women over 40 that aren't married or are divorced or are looking to date again or have dated the whole time, they're not expired if they can leave their baggage.
Oh man.
If they can be like, I'm with this guy, they're starting out as a white belt, right?
Yeah.
But what they tend to do is they tend to come in like, I'm a black belt, I know everything about everything.
They're coming in like a white belt who's done karate for 10 years, and they're like, they might even be humble enough to say, I'm a white belt in this art, but it's already trained in, right? So,
if they can acknowledge their baggage and they can leave it at the door and not go out and look at it.
Hypothetical situation though, let's say you passed away and you forced me in your will to date someone else. Do you think I would even be able to do that? I mean, how amazing I am. Do you think I would even be able to do that? You mean
you're trying to get over how amazing I am?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think
so to stay married for 20 years, you have to have an unrealistic self-image.
I mean, like, I have the most amazing baggage. Why would I want to leave it behind?
You'd have to. Yeah, you would have to. If something, just same thing. If I was going to get in a relationship,
I'm asking, do you think I'd be
if something happened to you, like if you got crippled or something, and then I was going to get into a relationship with somebody else, I'd have to leave you behind.
I'd have to be a total vegetable, not just crippled.
I know, because I'd hear you. You'd dial my number with your nose. You'd be like, hey Siri. Be like, oh, damn that voice activation. Oh, those electric wheelchairs are so fast
John,
nowadays.
We're going on a bike ride, and I'm going to be in the cart. You're going to get some good exercise.
I'm the horse, you're the cart.
Yes. But do you think I'd actually be able to? Do you think I'd actually be able to?
Of course, after a certain amount of time, like 50 years.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And then you'd be 102.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously, people get lonely and people can decide what they're going to do, right? And it might be that you join a bridge club or you go to bingo or
pickleball. It's the thing these days. Yeah, I'm aging into that category.
Yeah.
Could meet some guy who's has time to play pickleball.
Yeah.
Already had his knee replacements.
Hip replacements. Yeah.
Because pickleball just makes you speed in that direction.
Well, it's supposed to be slower, but some of them get aggressive.
Yeah. That's what I would do. I'd go to a local pickleball. Lifetime has their own pickleball center now. It has a cafe. I hear they serve alcohol and just. I'd be one of the younger ones there. I mean.
Well, you better knock me off soon then, because you're getting older.
Okay. All right, just leave the baggage behind.
If anything happens to me, you heard it here first. So, I think if women could, because we know people that have gotten remarried at later stages in life, and they can't leave their baggage behind. They can't, it's like, well, my first husband or my last boyfriend, or, and that's something women do. Guys won't say something like that. They'll think it. They'll look for the red flags, and then they'll ghost, or they won't even talk about that type of thing or whatever.
In the marriage?
In a relationship or a marriage. But I think women more so, if they can just, let it go and move on and start out as a white belt. No other analogies, okay? Just like you don't know anything, you're bring all your best to the relationship. Don't bring your worst. Don't bring your fears. Don't bring your disgust. Don't bring your, I hate it when guys do this. You have to make that next guy feel like this is the first time this has happened to you. This, like what he just did, that's so great. Thank you. That makes me feel just warm inside that you would do that for me. And, he might say, why, hasn't anybody else ever done this to you and for you, to you? And sorry, I'm not giving descriptions here. But, everybody wants, when they get in a new relationship, they all want that fresh feeling, right? That's why people do it. There's initial chemicals and initial feelings that go with a new relationship, right? And that's why when guys are online scrolling pictures of women, it's like, they don't just look at one. They say this. They study it. They scroll 10,000 pictures in an hour. And it's like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you have a preference? I do. Why don't you have a preference and you like that, and maybe you see that and you can go, wow, that's beautiful, and then let it go. Stop. Yeah, just let it go. I mean, and I don't even scroll looking at, they come across on feeds. You can't get away from it nowadays. Excuse me. If you see something pretty, some woman that's pretty, you just got to go, yeah, she's pretty. Okay. And then move on.
So we jumped from how do you still feel love after 20 years to, on a second marriage.
Yeah, so, I mean, you are already at the pickleball court. You're at the bar first. You're like, my horse is gone. I need a new horse to hitch to my cart.
So I do agree.
I would worry about you if something happened to me. Because I mean, you don't even know how to take the garbage out. It's like. Oh,
don't know how. Evidently, you are blind.
You know where it goes, but
yeah. Okay.
I'm feeling insulted now. I could take the garbage out. That's not true.
No, it's not about can. It's that I do, and you're not acknowledging that.
Well, if it's just out and there's a fresh bag in there, I mean, that thing like reproduces it. Look at this.
It's incredible.
Every time I come over here, it's clean. Just
like
what do I do with all this? Yeah, what do I do with all this garbage? You ask me, and I say, put it in this magic bin.
It's incredible. It's like the laundry bin, like
that one guy that has that laundry hamper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, he had a magic table too. He's like, I just throw my clothes on this table and they're in my drawers folded the next day.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
That was funny.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that you got to go look it up.
Yeah, I think they're Australian or something like that, wasn't it?
The lady's bitching about laundry and the guy's like, just put it on this table. That's so great.
Or in this section of the rug in the living room.
Those two get along. That made that video.
Yeah.
That's just awesome.
Well, I think that's a big part of it. So you said to Paige.
You know what I think people should do? A podcast.
Yes. And see how many times they can interrupt.
Well, this started from us interrupting each other at the morning table.
It was, yes.
Every morning we'd sit there, have coffee, and we just interrupt each other for an hour.
Yep.
And then we were like, we should
show others.
We should record this.
Yeah.
How can you be so happy just interrupting each other all the time?
Yes. Yeah. So.
Got to go to the bar.
Oh, I forgot.
And then the pickleball court, and then hook up the horse to the cart.
Answering Paige. So you said that you're, because you're so sexy
smoking
and handsome.
Hot.
Yep.
Yep.
I heard sexy and handsome, obviously.
I didn't say that, but.
But in a sense of humor, I think that is what happens is like when life. It's all like really fun in the beginning, right? People love falling in love. I've heard that's why a lot of people will.
I actually thought it was super difficult in the beginning with us. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, hang on, hold on to that thought. But then life happens, and you want to get into life, but life is, is work, is, making sure that the hamper and the garbages are operating properly, and taking, groceries and meals and then, if you have kids and it's kids, it's lawn. You have to remind everybody all the stuff that happens in adulting. And then if you're the communication stuff that I talked about earlier, and you're not communicating, you're actually silencing, becoming more and more silent, then it really is like you're snuffing out your relationship. And whereas you have to, I think you're really good at, yes, you're handsome and sexy and humorous. That helps a lot. But like things like today, you're the one initiating this podcast where I'm like, I have this to do, that to do, and I can get into this and that and like bore myself to death.
You have a garbage to empty.
I do, and laundry to do. Not boring, but I actually enjoy processes and taking care of stuff. It feels rewarding. Like it's the checking the something off the list syndrome, the dopamine rush, where you like put something on the list that you just did that wasn't on the list, but you put it on so you can check it off.
Because you just did it.
Because people who are into list making will totally understand what I'm saying. Is that what you do? Yeah. Well, I don't always, but when you're kind of like you need a bump, like a dopamine hit.
I did do one more thing today.
Yes,
I better write that down.
Right, and then cross it off also. And
do you take a different color pen to cross it off?
No, it's just kind of whatever's around.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually,
take it to the next level.
I like crossing it off in a color that is the same or darker. Not like...
Might as well.
Yeah. If it's lighter, it's just like it's not quite...
It's not done.
Yeah, or if it's red, it's like this, a little too much.
It was done wrong. If it's
maybe,
red.
Yeah, it could be.
In our work, we put all the bad parts in red bins.
Oh, so maybe it's subconsciously there.
Oh.
Yeah.
What accent was that?
Maybe subconscious.
Yeah.
Because like if it's the same color or darker, it's like, yeah, you really got it blotted out.
Got it done.
Yeah. So I think that's how you really help.
Do you scribble it off with a Sharpie marker, and then you can't read it, and you're like, what was that I even did?
No.
Oh.
No.
I guess I'm not that high quality or high level of a list maker.
No, that's pretty particular.
Our cohorts are gone.
Yeah. So I think that's what you do for our relationship. I've recognized, and even like when I'm resisting it, I'm like, I like today.
Okay.
I just decided, no, okay, that's what we're gonna do. I haven't done a podcast in a really long time. I know it's a gorgeous day. It's really good to get out, and the other stuff will get done or wait or whatever.
Yeah.
But stuff like this is, there's only certain moments in time that
It's
you can
important.
do it.
We have to answer Paige's question.
Yep.
So to truly answer her question, you have to be in love, and it's not
I missed that step.
No, you didn't. You fell in love really quick, and so did I.
How do you know?
I've been around other women.
All right, I'll stop interrupting.
Yeah. So, no, you fell in love quick. I fell in love quick. We moved in quick. We got married quick. I think getting married sooner than later is better. I give that advice all the time. Start your life as soon as you can. Don't listen to your parents and your aunt and uncle and everybody. Oh, take time, go to college, do that first. Go get yourself settled in life. Because by the time you're 25, 30 years old, you've got so many proclivities. You've got so many, I don't want that in my life. I don't want that in my life. And you see just the surface level of people. You don't know how much a person who loves you is willing to shift and change and invest in you and themselves and decide different things because they're with you, because they made a commitment. Women need commitment. So when a guy is like, well, I can just, I can go out and get another chick tonight. What do you blah, 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 and they're not committing.
Yeah.
Watch all these shows. There have been people on these dating shows, they've been dating for 10 years.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, well, she doesn't take anything I say seriously. Well, you don't even live together. You got your own apartment, and half the time she doesn't know where you are, and nowadays that's a big deal. You and I, we We share our tracking on our phones with each other. We've got cameras in our cars that we can see on our phones. I got air tags in every bag, every item of clothing. No, I'm just kidding. But we can track each other. Not that we follow each other, but it's just in case, right? I mean, if something happened to you, I'll just open my phone and it'd be like, she's 2 hours late. That's the reason. And I mean, we came from a generation where we didn't have smartphones when we started dating, and there wasn't that capability. Kids that are growing up with it now, I know people that use it because they don't trust each other. I think it's just a wonderful thing. My parents have tracking on me, and I'm on them. And so, my parents are older. If something happened, if I couldn't get a hold of them, if they got in a problem on the side of the road, they can't even help themselves, And so it's like they could just call. And if the phone went dead, I would know where they were because there's an air tag in their car. So I would know the last place they were and I could go there, right? And so, because old people make mistakes, that I didn't know my phone wasn't charged, and then my cord was broken for some reason. I couldn't charge it, whatever, right? And so I like to use the technology to my advantage, to our advantage. In business, that's what we do. And you got to think of your relationship as a business deal, because it is. You're talking about prenuptial agreements and people talking about their relation. It's like a business plan, right? They're talking about, well, if something breaks us up, if we decide we can't be together, then I'm willing to leave with this, and if you're willing to leave with that, we can leave amicably. It won't cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees and arguments for years and problems and people undercutting each other and all this kind of stuff. That's a business plan. Yeah. And you can think of it as not loving or not caring or whatever, but in reality, it's caring more if you're that kind of person. If you say, this is what I got to do in order to be in a relationship with you, because I can't, I own a company, but if I owned a company that was like a $200 million a year company or $2 billion a year, I couldn't get married and then 2 years later get divorced and lose half of my assets.
Well, and how many people's lives are dependent on that? And how many other people's lives can that ruin?
And how many people get bitter in the end, and...
Well, we did bring up prenuptial agreement when we were getting married, and it's different different situation, but, well, I think some good points that he brought up, and I think these days, personally, I think most people should.
Well, I owned a house when we got together. I wouldn't do it. In my own mind, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be marrying somebody that I'm planning on getting divorced from.
I mean, that's a really good point that you brought up when we were getting married, and I think it is, but there's so many people are very secular these days. There isn't the reverence for marriage that maybe there is, at least in more religiously oriented minds or unions, and that kind of holds that together. But people are so secular these days, and there's so much talk about my stuff, your stuff. But then, like you said, if you have a business or something where so many people are dependent and you don't have clear lines. But I think this attorney made a very good argument in the sense that he says, why not get together and make this agreement? First of all, have the talk. So you're actually having the discussion, and do it when you're most in love, when you're most generous and loving towards one another, rather than later you're spending all this money and are the worst versions of yourself.
Right. Well, most people get divorced because of problems, right? Yeah. Financial problems in families, or problems, infidelity, whatever it is, right? And so then they get bitter, and then. But if you're in the wrong, if I was a CEO of a company, I probably couldn't get married without a prenup, because the board would say, you can't risk any of this, right? And so and I am a CEO of a company, but I own all of it, so I can tell myself what to do. But it's to me, I would have married you and not needed a prenup unless it was required by something that large, by the board. Like a lot of people, you can't become the CEO of a company unless you get a $50 million life insurance policy. There are things that are in place in higher levels of structure, but most people are getting married as just a couple. They each have a job. One might have a house. They both might have a house, and they're going to sell one of the houses and live in the other one, right? And they don't think of a prenup because they don't think they really have anything to fight over or argue over. And then they married for 10, 15 years, they accumulate things, and maybe even they accumulate wealth. And then somebody's unsatisfied, or they're like, well, I could do better, because I'm not being treated right. But I knew, for me, I would never let my relationship get to the point where I would have to get divorced because of lack of communication, bad behavior, that type of thing, right? And so that's where we end. That's why I said no, because I wasn't just gonna, I love you so much, I'm just gonna, I'm like, I can do a relationship, as long as you're not a crazy person, I can do a relationship and have everything be copacetic.
So is there anything that I did or do that you think helps ensure our happiness, our love at 24 plus years?
Yeah, you're a pirate. You play pirate.
I do that really
Arg.
well. Yeah.
Well, more so in the last 5 years than at any time in our relationship. I put up with you for 18 years, and then you started shifting and changing.
So what did I shift and change?
Well, there's a lot of struggle in the beginning. You had family struggles. You had problems. Your family had problems releasing you, letting you launch in a positive way, and that took a pretty big toll early on. And we made it. But you were not raised by a mother that taught being a family person. There's a lot of demands on family, but not a lot of leeway with family, not a lot of freedom with family. It was a lot of hardcore kind of I don't know, I would say painful requirements, like you all kind of waited to see what mood your mother was in before anybody could react.
So what did I change? Like what, if you could
You changed the way that you talked to me.
Anything in particular?
I mean, I'm kind of a prolific communicator, so you started questioning me instead of saying things at me, or instead of asking me with purpose, you asked me with inquisitiveness. And I could tell, it's like your mom saying, is your room clean? And when I was a kid, I'd go, you just walk by it, what do you think? I knew that she always checked before she asked, because she wanted to see what I was going to say. And I would always say, yeah, absolutely.
What did that do for you, though, when I changed that? Like, how did that change inside of you?
Well, I didn't have to figure out what you were after. You were truly, you decided and you realized that you weren't going to get out of me what you wanted by manipulating me, and not in a mean way, but in a you were always very purposeful, like, hey, what do you think, what about this, and if we did that, and blah blah blah, but it was always aiming me somewhere instead of allowing me to, and I was leading us no matter what, but it was like I was leading and you're always pulling me to the side, and so I just have to brace myself and keep going forward. And you're pulling me a little sideways and back, a little diagonally backwards. Mm-hmm. You're trying. But all of a sudden, it's like you stood alongside of me and you kind of just held my hand and said, kind of like, where are we walking to now? And I've always had the same goals. I've told you about them for 24 years. And it's step by step as we go farther and grow our business or businesses. You own a business and run a business, and we move forward together, and we move a lot faster. Like I've always said, 1 and 1 make 11. Instead of 1 and 1 being 2 people, when we work together, we move a lot faster. And we've had a lot of those kinds of flashes in our relationship, right? Over the years, we've done very good things together, but it always got a little bit pulled to the side by your desires and your wants and things that you didn't think you had that you wanted. And you know, I told you in the beginning of our relationship, this is something I tell guys. You tell her she'll always have shelter, adequate shelter, and adequate food. The best food you can afford, the best shelter you can afford. That's all you can promise, because you're going to live, as a guy, you're going to live somewhere, and as a guy, you're going to eat, you know. And so if you're going to get married, you have a responsibility to provide at least the things that you're bringing for yourself, right? And that doesn't mean, you know, if I go out and spend $5,000, I give you $5,000 to go spend. You know, that doesn't, I see that a lot in relationships, you know, well, he went out and spent money, so I'm going to go spend money. And that's a real degradation in a relationship. And I mean, you can talk about it. You could be, you know, why do you have 4 motorcycles and I don't have a brand new car? You know, and be like, well, you don't need a brand new car. You got a really good car. You know, that's
I need a motorcycle for each day of the week.
Well, there was a year that I kind of went nuts on motorcycles, and you know, and it was an outlet for me to. It was a little extreme, but it was an outlet for me to not go crazy, and it helped me a lot. And you know, it was pretty stressful times for me, you know, in business and stuff, and you know, not going into all the stories on this podcast, but yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a lot more measured with what I do and how I do it nowadays, and you know, we survived and had fun. I had a lot of fun. You had some fun. I mean, we went motorcycling together a lot, but yeah, I mean, I had a little hobby. I was a little addicted hobby for a little bit.
Is there anything else that comes to mind that you think that I did or do that helps in the love department after 20 some years?
Well, more and more, you're a lot more relaxed and less judgy. You know, if I was doing certain things, you probably were thinking I was wasting time. I mean, thankfully, I never had a big video game habit. I've had a couple of consoles over the years. And generally what I do, advice to guys, I'll buy a game that has a beginning and an end, like Splinter Cell. That was my favorite. And I would play the game from beginning to end. I do 2 different levels of difficulty. I was never able to do the hardest level difficulty. So I do like basic and intermediate, or turn on certain things to make it harder. I go through it one time on basic, and then the next time on intermediate. Never able to finish it on advanced. And then I would just give the console away. And so, I mean, that might take me a couple of months, you know, from beginning to end. Not every day, not every night, not all the time, but to do that, to solve it. It was kind of a high level puzzle, you know, and kind of an exciting thing, you know, being a special ops secret agent guy, whatever, you know, guys like that kind of stuff. But I didn't play, I mean, I played Halo with some friends on sometimes, but I didn't play games that never ended, you know, because I realized that was going to waste my time. I was already a business owner, and, you know, so I wasn't trying to waste my time. I always wanted to spend time with you. You know, we've probably bought a house just going out to dinner over the years. You know, wine and nice restaurants and that kind of stuff. But over the years, you become less judgy, you know, and I can, no matter if you were saying it or not, I could feel it. And you don't do that anymore. Like right now, I was just talking about my motorcycles and stuff, and then you brought it back to yourself. That is what I'm talking about right there in a nutshell. Instead of going, yeah, you know, I really resented that, and yeah, you spent X number of dollars on it, and boy, I couldn't even believe it when I found out, no, you know, and that kind of thing.
I think what happened, I had a number of points where I just got fed up with myself, and I don't know if
what specifically?
Well, I'll get there. I don't know if other women or even people experience that, but I was so fed up with feeling frustrated or resentful, or it's just all these yucky feelings that I realized, I'd like to say it was one day or whatever that I realized, but I first of all had to become aware of it, because at first you're just bathed in it and you can't even tell the difference. Like, that's just how you live.
Well, and you think you're justified because you're feeling so heavy and big.
Right. And then just having the realization, like, oh, this is why I'm feeling this way. This is resentment. This is selfishness. Those probably sum up most of it. And then just once being aware of it, being like, this doesn't feel good, like.
And what is it doing for you?
It's not helping me be in the state of mind or heart that helps me or our relationship. And even though I can justify it, what am I just going to justify myself into more of these feelings for the next how many decades and years?
Yeah.
And
if you're going to stay with me, I mean, you could have decided I'm going to go look for another guy, and you might have got a richer guy, you might have got a nicer guy, you might have got a really nice guy who's totally poor, or a real big asshole who's totally rich, or you might have got a good combination, or you could decide to change yourself, which is something that all of us need to realize. When we're having problems, something recently, right? I had a problem with a friend, and this friend went off in a way that I thought was uncalled for, and at me, and my first thing was I was upset, but my second thing was, what did I do? And then I had to think about historically, what did I do? Mm-hmm. And how have I responded and said things in the past? Did I build this up in that person? Did I make them not respect me in that way, or not think that they could talk to me like that, or made them think they could talk to me like that? What's going on? And that's probably some of the stuff you went through. Am I creating this for myself? And it wasn't me being crabby or being selfish or thinking I needed to be a certain way towards this guy, but it made me think, and I don't want that kind of thing to happen again. So, how do I change it? How do I respond? How do I behave? And do I change myself? Do I change my friends? Do I,
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's what it's like, when you think about yourself. I mean, I've changed over the years and thought, am I doing something to my wife that makes her question me that way, or try to push me, or be upset with me every 3 months about something? What am I doing? And then self-analysis, right? You think about it and try something different. You don't want to be too different. You can't just be a way that you're not, that's not natural to you, but you have to find those little pieces along the way and go, oh, okay, I say this happens, I do this, that happens. Okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll, like you started just asking me, what are your plans for this? How would you go about this? If you were going to do this, or is there anything I need to know about in the next 6 months? And that kind of questioning really shifted it for me. Mm-hmm. And I noticed it, and that was about 5 years ago you started doing that.
I don't recall how conscious it was, but at some point I realized, if not just right now,
I think it was super conscious.
This particular part.
Oh.
In that, if I don't change the way I'm approaching John, he's going to typically respond in the same ways. That's people's typical way. Now you're
that's
smarter.
How people keep each other in a place.
You're smarter than the average bear. However, if I'm always acting in this way, you're going to tend to come back at me in the same way. And I had the opportunity to change that dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it was conscious. I think you probably got frustrated with me, but then realized that it wasn't going to shift. So then you got frustrated with yourself. Like, why didn't I see this sooner? Why didn't I think of something sooner? Because I've gone through that in situations, right? Like, oh man, I just lost that. Like in business, deals and things. And it's like, oh, okay. Note to self, next time, don't just a common thing. Don't be a Mr. Know-it-all. You know, let other people in on the brain game. Let other people in on the process, even if you don't think it's efficient, even if you know where you're going to end up anyway, even if you know what will and won't work. Let there be discussion. Let there be, you know, brainstorming sessions and mastermind sessions, and, you know, groupthink, coming together and changing and shifting, and, you know, I mean, otherwise, you got what you got, and you're always going to have what you have.
Yeah.
You know, and you might have less if you make bad decisions, right? You know, so yeah, I think that's marriage in a nutshell. You know, like the question after 20 years, how do you still desire to be together? You know, we're always leveling up, even little levels up, little level ups feel big when there hasn't been a change for a while. You know, and it's the same old, right? Like, we have our morning conversations generally every morning. You know, we get up, we make coffee, butter coffee from the Andes Mountains, the top of the Andes Mountains, the indigenous people, the NASA people, coffee growers, you know, and we make the best coffee in the world with that coffee. And then we sit and we sip and we talk, and it might just be a 5-minute thing. It might be, sometimes it's a 2-hour thing, you know, if we're really into it, and a lot of times it's business, you know, it's about your business or about something I'm doing. And we work together, and we're able to ask each other for help, and you know, more equal partners than ever. And that's something that is very rewarding. You know, it's something that, you know, and I'll just say this out loud, you really had to earn, you know, because I was a business owner when you met me, and I've been a business owner ever since you met me still. And I was a business owner long before you met me, and I've had multiple businesses, and it's really difficult it would be very difficult for me to let you in on decisions in my business, because you don't come from that background. You didn't have that background. Well, now after 24 years, you've been running a business for the last 6.5, 7 years, and you've been around me for 24 years. That's really how long it took. You know, and different people might be different, but you know, it's very rewarding to be sitting here and able to converse and share on relatively similar levels on multiple topics. You know, some of them we're above each other, we're below each other. Some of them we mesh perfectly, and we're figuring out all the balance, and that's intriguing to me about marriage, because it's going to be you tomorrow. You know, it's going to be you next week. You know, and I have a foundation that I can build on, and you have a foundation you can build on, and that's the reward of marriage in my mind.
So that may not be the case. I thought, as you were talking about that, in this, we're individually and together unique, right? Every couple is different, right? Mm-hmm. And so that exact journey, those exact spoken or unspoken goals may not be the same thing. But I'll get into more on wifey school, but I think what really helped me to come around to these changes was really going against what I think is taught in our society these days. You know, I don't naturally gravitate towards social media anyways, but there's such a stronghold on, this is where you should be at this point in life. This is what you should be wearing, what you should be driving, how you should be living. Yeah. And
well, that's all bullshit.
Well, it's very easy to be overcome by that, and I wouldn't even call myself like a highly materialistic person, but I still had these unspoken or spoken, you know, eventually goals with you, and that was making me miserable. And I can get into the details on how I overcame these things in wifey school. Maybe it's better for us to cover these things here.
Wifeyschool.us.
But I had to get to the point where it wasn't about the dream board. The dream board will tear you apart internally and in your marriage. Mm-hmm. And get to the point where I could simply be content with our morning coffees and just like, wow, we get to be here in the morning. You know, neither of us are rushing, although at times I had to rush off to a meeting or something, maybe, you know.
Well, it depends. I've rushed out the door early in the morning sometimes, but
it's
we
also
prioritize each other.
Right. And so I had to get to the point where I could actually truly be grateful. I was just had a nice afternoon with your mom the other day, and we were driving, and I was telling her about, you know, the gratitude journals I've had, and one I found the other day and it had 2 lines in it. And, you know, that's totally the joke, you know, for me, is that I wasn't, until a certain point, I was not able to truly tap into gratitude. It was an exercise. It was laborious. Whereas nowadays I can very randomly, you know, just even my subconscious, I think it comes up more.
You can easily know what you're grateful for.
Yeah, it's more of a state of being than an exercise, right? Like, okay, Tara, you're doing dishes now, and as you're standing there, think of, you know, 10 things that you're grateful for, or, you know, now
the fact that you can stand and you're not in a wheelchair.
Right.
Like in the beginning of the podcast.
Right. So many things, and that alone helped a lot of it, you know, it was like the solvent to break apart all the other nasty stuff.
I think that's good if you're going to talk about that on Wifey School at wifeyschool.us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young ladies nowadays have that issue that, you know, they're told, you know, we go out in the world, your high school counselors tell you to go to college, tell you to spend the money, they tell you you're going to make all this money, you get out of school, you work at a sandwich shop with a PhD, you're a PhD sandwich maker, or you live in your parents' basement with, you know, a couple $100,000 worth of debt and you can't figure out how to pay it off, and you don't even go out and get a job. You know, people need to be told, go out and get a job. They need to go out and work so they know what they don't want to do. They need to go out and have a little bit of suffering so when they get something good, they're happy about it. You know, you got to go out in the snow to come in and appreciate the warmth in your house. You know, you got to, you know, if you've fallen in a frozen lake, you know, you're very cautious in the future. You know, you know, you're reticent to go out on the ice, but you know, if you want to go ice fishing, that's what you got to do. And
that's what I always say.
I say that every day. But yeah, if you're going to talk about this kind of stuff, that will really help a lot of young ladies, I think.
Or not as young ladies.
Hey, you know, there's that too. There is learning how to be grateful at every stage in life for whatever you have. Your health. What did RFK Jr. said the other day? He said, a sick man has one goal, a healthy man has many goals. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's true. I mean, I had a physical problem a couple years ago, and I almost died. And the only thing that I could think about, I had to think about a lot of other things, but the first thing that came to mind was, how am I going to get healthy again? Mm-hmm. How am I going to put muscle back on? How am I going to put weight back on? How am I going to feel strong again? You know, it'd take me 10 minutes to get to the bathroom, you know, but I made myself do it. I didn't lay on the couch and use one of those pee things, whatever they're called. I got up every time I had to go.
So the two things you said, not that I'm overly fishing or anything, but
I was grateful when I made it to the bathroom too, because I made it.
Yeah. I mean, the two things you mentioned are pretty significant, but is there anything else that you think that I've done over the years or more recently that has lent to us having a loving relationship or desiring each other even after 24 years?
Well, I know you're into the Bible more. I know that you do your morning study or reading. I don't know what you're calling it. Sometimes I hear you say you got to do your reading. Sometimes I hear you say study. But I think that is, you know, that started out probably as a personal search for yourself to find more meaning maybe in marriage, maybe in life in general. But I think it turned into a great appreciation for fundamentals, for foundation, for an appreciation for things that are good. And instead of complaining about your husband, you have a husband. Instead of complaining about, you know, something I did do, you can be grateful that I'm not doing things that are ruining our marriage, that could destroy our marriage, and that's that contrast, that's the falling in the ice and being grateful that you don't have to swim in frozen rivers, I know
grateful for that every day.
It's a metaphor I use all the time. As you can tell how complete it is.
Yeah.
But it is, you have this contrast and whether you're reading books that are nonfiction and you're realizing history, and thank goodness we don't live in a time of war in the United States, and all these things, you can be grateful for the things that are not happening as much as you can be grateful for the things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And I think a book like the Bible throws a massive perspective on life. There's foundational concepts and learnings that you get in different ways, the same learnings, because people have just rewritten all the principles out of the Bible. Yeah. They'll just adapt it to other things. And you don't even have to be religious, you don't even have to be a believer, to read the Bible. You're going to get great things out of it.
So should we conclude with the actual reason why I got into reading the Bible?
Sure.
So it wasn't necessarily on like a personal quest kind of thing.
I made you because I'm a fundamentalist.
It was when you were in the hospital, remember? Okay, we'll back up a step. So you had what we found out later was a ruptured colon, and you were really suffering, but you weren't going to go to the hospital. And I already know you, but at a certain point I was like, okay, this is seeming, almost a couple weeks in, I'm like, this is seeming pretty serious. And so I told you on a Wednesday, I said, if you feel the pain coming up to your kidneys and your back, you have to let me know. So I kind of put this is the boundary, right? I won't let you go so far.
That was kind of hard because my whole body hurt.
Probably should have taken you in, but I knew in my mind I would take you in Friday morning. That would be my final call.
Yeah.
And
that was 2 weeks after I had the rupture.
Right. And you're like, I forget, I remember where we were standing, and I said, how you're feeling, do you have pain here? And you're just, I don't even remember if you're like, I kind of have pain there. Like maybe you said I have pain all over. I was like, okay, we're going to urgent care. And you're like, okay. And I was like, oh, there's no resistance here. I was like,
whatsoever.
I don't even remember if I showered. I think I took a quick shower, like put on a ball cap or something, and like, we'll be headed out, because I knew like on Friday it's going to be busy. I want to get there. I already knew what time they opened.
You wanted to get me right after I said yes.
Yes, and like they opened at 8, and I was like, it's 7 o'clock. Let's get going. Yeah. And anyways.
Well, I'm very resistant to lots of things. That's why you were shocked. But I had no willpower at that point.
So long story short, we spent the day in urgent care, emergency care.
Long story short, I was dying.
Well,
yeah. Yeah. I had sepsis when we got there. I was septic.
Yeah.
They were surprised I was alive.
Yeah.
They put intravenous antibiotics in right away. They did an MRI right away. They thought my appendix burst, and then they thought my spleen had burst, and then they found this mass in my lower abdomen. And what had happened was I had a mass of infection because I had gotten a bruised colon from a mountain biking accident, and the part of the colon that got bruised grew out as a bubble because the tissue got bruised, and then it didn't have its tension or its rigidity, right?
It appeared to be diverticuli to the...
Then it went out like that. Doctors. It was a baseball size.
Yeah.
And that had ruptured 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
And it was all divine providence, because if we had gone in the hospital right away, I would have had all this infection in my abdomen. But within that 2 weeks, my body had collected it all and put it, like the body makes tumors, right?
Yeah.
So my body had collected it all and put it back in a pouch.
Well, it was abscess, not a tumor.
Yeah, but my body had put it all back in a pouch. So it was like a tumor, like how the body sequesters stuff, right?
Yeah, it encapsulates.
It encapsulated it. And they saw that in the MRI. Mm-hmm. And they went, oh, you got something down here. Mm-hmm. But I was dying. I knew afterwards, I told you, I said, I don't think I would have survived the weekend, how bad I was at that point. And then I was was up in a hospital in Minneapolis.
So that was Friday. By that afternoon, you were up in Minneapolis at the hospital. They wouldn't let me stay overnight, COVID rules, and
Yeah, you
so
could bring
go
COVID
home.
back into the hospital
I
the
could
next
come back
day,
with COVID,
but you
but I
couldn't stay
could-
overnight. Yeah,
So I was driving,
it was all those smart people.
into the beautiful sunrise on a gorgeous fall morning, and you call me and you're like, they're taking me into surgery, and I'm like, crap. But anyways, on the way, I'd packed a few things, not knowing what was going to happen that day. I'd packed some food, and I had packed my Bible, which I had asked your mom not too long before that to gift me a Bible, and I didn't get around to reading it that day, but because there was a lot of stuff going on, but it later occurred to me, like, if I'm going to turn to the Bible in what is the most critical point in my life, in our life, why don't I turn to it at other times? Why is it only for emergencies?
Well, and I had called you that night, and I told you that I asked out loud of the Christ Consciousness Council. I said, am I going to be okay? And an audible voice in the room said, you shall be well. And I started just sobbing, and I called you. I was so weak that night. I was so weak. I could feel a little better because of the antibiotics in my body, but I was so weak. And yeah, at that point, I'd lost about 42 pounds over the course of 2 weeks.
And you hadn't had any food that day. Of course, they needed you to be fasted before surgery.
I was fasted.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 2 weeks. I didn't eat because there was so much pain in my abdomen. I didn't know what was going on.
So there's more to that story. And
we did a podcast on it.
Well, more to the story about the Bible, the
your
spiritual
stuff, yeah.
quest. And
Yeah.
it was a couple months later where some business dealings and partnerships had really, really fallen apart. Very, very dramatically.
On your end, on your business.
On my end,
yeah.
in my business, and very emotionally. And it was like, okay, what's going on here? So I think a great place to start, if someone's wondering, where to start with Proverbs. Proverbs is very relatable. They're short. You can read just like one verse, and it's just like, you can just chew on that all day.
And always do it for yourself. Don't do it because of somebody else. Don't do it for somebody else. Do it for yourself. That's what it's like.
Well, I did like reading. I just have a caveat to that. It's true, I agree. But it did help at that time, the Proverbs talking about all the unwise people, and, yeah, that's right, they're unwise and just crummy to deal with. So it was healing in that way too. But I had to get beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's more to that story, but we can share more.
Well, that was good.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Find us at Jon Tara Podcast on Facebook.
Instagram, YouTube,
yeah.
all over the place.
Look around.
JONTARA.
Yeah, or John Boglan on Facebook and Instagram. You'll find us.
Yeah.
Give me a pound.
Bye.
Bye-bye.